Hello, and welcome to more Lore and Loot. The political climate in Vardenfell in the year 427 of the Third Era is very complicated. You see, only 13 years prior to the events of the Elder Scrolls III, Vardenfell was not open for settlement. Ever since the Treaty of the Armistice between Morrowind and the Cyrodiilic Empire, Vardenfell had remained a tribunal temple preserve, with only a few scattered settlements across the island. However, the King of Morrowind, King Lalu Athen Lethen, revoked the temple ban on trade and settlement. Soon, the island was full of frontiersmen, settlers, prospectors, and investors from both the Empire and the great houses of the mainland. House Telvanni established itself in the east of the island and has mostly kept to itself. House Lalu and Redoran each carved out areas for themselves, and an uneasy truce was established. The status quo, of course, was disturbed by the blight and by the ambitions of each house. We saw in the last episode how House Lalu tried to take a Telvanni outpost by force. These small-scale conflicts are common. However, at the end of the day, House Telvanni remains probably the least ambitious of the houses, as the leaders in Vardenfell are more worried about their own personal affairs and aggrandizing themselves rather than furthering the House Telvanni cause in Vardenfell, with the exception of one man. Master Arion is very interested in the advancement of House Telvanni on the island and is working behind the scenes to further this goal. If we speak to him for chores, he will tell us, "Thanks to recent agreements with House Lalu, we have a chance of passing a resolution which would overturn the Mages Guild monopoly." Inquiring further, Arion explains that according to one interpretation of the armistice, only the Mages Guild can provide services to non-members. Apparently, there needs to be consensus between the three great houses. House Lalu is already on board, and we just need to convince House Redoran to join. We need to convince at least 3 Redoran councilors to support the vote, and suggest we start with Athen Sadrith, since he seems to be the most open-minded out of the Redoran. This begins the quest, Mages Guild Monopoly. We'll need to make our way to Alderun, House Redoran's capital in Vardenfell. The fastest way from here is to travel by boat to Sadrith Mora, and then use the Mages Guild Guide to transport us to Alderun, which is quite ironic, isn't it? Using their services to get to the place where we're going to work to revoke their monopoly on services. I quite like that. Arriving in Alderun, we'll need to go under Scar, which essentially means inside the enormous structure near the back of the town, where all of the Redoran councilors are. Once inside, we'll need to take these bridges to reach the manors. The Sadrith Manor is all the way on the left as you come in. Councilor Sadrith will need his disposition raised to at least 50 before you will be able to progress his dialogue to get what we need. And then once you do, and asking him to agree to vote for us, he'll say that he agrees that the monopoly is unfair and that he will support us. Then he suggests that to convince the other councilors, we'll need to appeal to fairness, but that we shouldn't bother with Archmaster Bolvin Venom, since he will never support the resolution. Well, why not, I wonder? Prying further, Sadrith will tell us that Bolvin Venom is a great warrior and a strong leader, but he is not just and fair. Well, we can then ask him to elaborate about appealing to fairness. And he'll explain that House Redoran prides itself in its just and fair dealings with the other houses. And though House Redoran does not approve of everything the Telvanni do, not surprising, this is the best way to convince the other counselors. And that is fair enough. We'll begin our diplomatic quest by visiting the Lethri Manor, which is the one right next to Sarethi's. Everyone here is rude, and this place is confusing to navigate, but eventually we make it to the Lethri private quarters, where we find the finely dressed Garissa Lethri.
I suppose you're looking for a tavern. I'm sure I can't help you.
We will need to increase every counselor's disposition to at least 40 before we can convince them. So we'll start off by greasing some palms. We can then ask about overturning the guild monopoly, and nope, he's not interested in helping House Telvanni. Well, why don't we take Counselor Sarethi's advice and appeal to fairness instead? You have shown that you understand Escaladalf, and I will support this resolution, he says. Very nice. Let's move on. We'll skip the next door for now and move on to the Arabar Manor. And like before, everyone here is rude, and like the Lethri Manor, this place is kind of maze-like. Eventually, we will run into Counselor Minor Arabar in his private quarters. Counselor Arabar appears to be someone who, shall we say, likes to hear himself talk. And after a completely unnecessarily lengthy introduction, we can finally ask him if he'll help overturn the Mages Guild monopoly. Well, that was succinct. Anyways, once we appeal to fairness, after giving him money, of course, he will give a lengthy version of, "You have my support," and we can move on to the next counselor. Looks like Counselor Arabar lets his guards get into the good liquor. Well, technically we're done. We needed to convince only 3 out of the 5 counselors, and now we have Counselor Arabar, as well as Lethri and Sarethi. But for the sake of thoroughness, let's go to the 4th and final counselor we can convince, Brara Morvain. Now, she does not have a manor, but instead is renting a room in the Redoran Council Hall on the bottom floor. As with all the other counselors, she will refuse to help if we only speak about the monopoly, and she will not listen to us if we are not a friend of House Redoran, so we need to bribe her like everyone else. Well, that didn't go as planned. It seems that Mistress Brara Morvain is the only one of the Redoran who is insulted by bribes. Never mind. She is just more clever than the others. Well played. After giving her 1,200 septums for the privilege of her friendship, we can then unironically appeal to fairness. The law is unfair, isn't it? And with that, we have all the support we need, and then some. We can now return to Master Arion and report our success. Arion is quite pleased with our success and gifts us a magical glove, Arion's Dominator. This left-handed glove will cast Command Creature 15 levels on target and Command Humanoid 15 levels on touch for 120 seconds when used. It's probably not something we'll ever use, but it is a nice looking glove. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the full story of how House Telvanni ended the Mages Guild monopoly in Vardenfell. Please join me in the next episode as we continue to explore the full story of the House Telvanni questline. As always, thank you for watching, and see you next time.